Well, it's the program that layeth the smacketh down on the ratings of all the other programs, both WWE and AEW. It is, of course, Smackdown, and that took place on Friday night, July 28th. Would you like to talk about that now, Brian?
Would I like to? Or do I think it's probably the best thing we should do?
I phrased that imperfectly. Are we tasked with the responsibility of briefly reporting what went on?
Yes, we've been tasked with that responsibility.
Basically, for all the listeners out there, the people, the cult of Cornette, who either don't have 2 hours or just don't want to be witness to it, would rather just hear about it in their heads while they're going about their day. It was the Bloodline and others. It's almost like Rocky and Friends, Bloodline and others. As long as you know you're getting Rocky the Flying Squirrel, what the fuck difference does it make whether you get fractured fairy tales or whatever the case?
Well, it does make a difference. Sometimes you want Dudley Do-Right or something. But let me ask you this before you even get to the review. Having seen this episode now and remembering what last week's episode was, would you say this was a missable episode of SmackDown, or did people wanting to stay in touch with everything happening need to see this week's episode?
Well, no, you need to see what's going on with the Bloodline, although they'll recap it, before SummerSlam. He should have shot him off and called SummerSlam. I'm sure they'll recap it next week. I don't think anybody's going to be out there committing Harry Carey or even Harry Carey Jr. because they missed this episode, but it's the Bloodline and others. And they started out with the Bloodline. Main event, Jey Uso in the ring, and he has time to introduce himself. Main event, Jey Uso is in your city. Or was it state?
Was that what he sounds like?
Well, and I wasn't trying to do the whole presentation.
Well, no, he actually got the intro. The ring announcer announced him as being in there, but he was already in the ring.
But he was in the city or the state.
It was New Orleans.
It might have even been the county.
Yeah.
He's there. He's in there.
He's there.
And in here, God damn it. We're just making mockery of this shit now at this point. No, but here came Roman. As soon as Jay mentioned where he was. And they do the entrance, and at least now they've quit ribbing Paul, or maybe he's made a plea for mercy because he wasn't carrying the belts, he was carrying the tribal lei, which I would think the flowers weigh less than the metal does, but Roman has his one, the new gold belt, and the blue one and the red one. Paul left, he's got the lei. So he's right there, he's expending what? 400 less calories per television program. He's going to balloon up even bigger now.
And he finally gets laid.
And he finally gets that. Thank you. I liked that better when I used it on Shivani in 1987, but you can have it for now.
Well, every 30 years you can recycle.
Well, that's true. And it's been 37, as Luke and Butch would say. The old sheep herder fans will get that one. Anyway, so we're going to stall a little more before we talk about this program. No, it's 6 minutes into the show, Nolans, Louisiana, or as we used to call it when we worked Mid-South, Louisiana. Nolans acknowledged Roman 6 minutes into the program. So we got Jay introducing himself and Roman walking to the ring for 6 fucking minutes. And the people were glued to the sets. So Roman says that Jay forgot that Roman opens the show because it's Roman's show. And Roman made Jay his right-hand man, made him main event Jey Uso, did everything, that has ever been done for him. And now Jay's trying to open his show? What are you, the tribal chief? He delivered it just like that. He was imitating me at the time. And Jay, of course, is anguished and in deep emotion where he didn't want any of that. He tried to support Roman. I believed in you, but you broke this family. You broke Jimmy. You broke it. I have to do what I have to do. It's all your fault. But then Roman turned it around in his best Stanislavski method acting. as opposed to the inside the actor's studio. Is James Lipton still alive? He was surprisingly old.
No, he's dead now.
Is it? Can we play a little Reggie's Corner for him?
No, he's not a dog or a cat.
Some of the people that were interviewed by him may have a different opinion. Wasn't that one of his questions? If you were a cat, what would you do?
That was not one of his questions, no.
So anyway, Roman, back to the actor's studio.
You and cats.
We're on Broadway here, baby. Roman says, it's Jay's. It's all your fault. Jimmy was hurt. That's why you became the right-hand man. And say like Jimmy's hurt now, and that's why you get a match with me. Solo loves and respects me more than he loves and respects you. So when I beat you, you're out. You're done. You're finished. But what about, let's just entertain the thought. Just for shits and grins, he didn't say. But what if you do beat me, Roman says? Then you get the belt and the lay and all of it, but I'll always be Roman Reigns, and you ain't got anybody. You ain't got nobody. Nobody. And he really fired up, asking why that Jay would think that he could possibly beat him. And the Uso chant gets going. Uso, Uso. At least he's got a short name, so they got more wind for it, and they can get it. The rhythm is easy. And Jay says, it's because I already beat you, and I'm the only one that's done it. And at SummerSlam, I'm going to beat you again. And boom, scene, music, out. And that was the opening segment featuring the Bloodline. What did you think, Brian? What did you think of the dramatic renditions of this week's wrestling program before they started all that pesky wrestling?
I think I said it last time we talked about SmackDown. They're all really good in what they're doing, but I'm a little sick of, at this point, them standing in the ring together at the same time and talking to each other. How many times does that have to happen and it ends with someone getting super kicked?
Or spiked.
Or spiked, right? Every single time. Or
speared.
Time. Yeah.
The 3 S's, super kick, spikes, and spears. That's good. See, I just named somebody's new podcast.
Or band.
I think that's too long for the marquee.
What marquee? You think there's still marquees?
Well, that's true. There's plenty of marks, but there's not a lot of marquees. Anyway, so there you go. So that was, but now there's more to come. Oh, there's going to be some more to come.
What do you think about that, though? The fact that, again, they're still, at this point, it's one thing like one guy's all the way on one side of the building and one guy's in the ring or something, but they're just in the ring again, face to face. We've already established that they're having the match. Should they still be doing this?
Well, I wouldn't mind Paul being in the ring because, he couldn't whip cream with an outboard motor at his aged, elongated, expanded condition. But I believe if I was Jay, I'd say, look, brother Solo, you can't be in the ring with me because you're going to try to spike me because you're a loose fucking cannon. And I would have learned after the first, 4 to 6 times, I think. Because it's coming.
Let me ask you another question because it hit me watching this. I don't have the answer, so I want someone else's opinion who will get in trouble for their answer. Do you think Jay's is over as Sammy was at the beginning of the year?
No. In a slightly different way, though. Here's the thing. Sammy was getting over just as Sammy, and they loved him, and he was the cute guy and said the cool thing. He's just a nerdish, unoffensive guy that people would like, right? In that group trying to stir things up. But at the same time, that overlapped, unfortunately, now with him and Temper Boy Owens and whatever the fuck the bum of the week club that they're going through. They've kind of lost some of that. But I felt like Sammy, the people loved him particularly, sort of like a Mick Foley type of deal, that hangdog, droopy expression sometimes. Whereas they like Jay now because they think he's going to try to kick Roman's ass. But I'm not sure they would just be loving Jay unless he was in this particular thing right now, as much as either they do or they did Sammy. Does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So anyway, here's another thing that didn't make any sense. No, we said what they were going to do last week with Rey Mysterio and our friend Pablo Santo Escobar, where the winner gets a U.S. title bout, and obviously Escobar is the pupil or the protege, and Rey is the teacher or the mentor or the hero, whatever the case. And they've come down to where they're going to have this match. And I predicted they're trying to make Escobar the new younger generation full-time Hispanic superstar. So Rey would need to not only give his blessing, but he would need to be able to defeat Rey in a clean fashion to kind of get that torch passed, and then they hug or hold their hands up or whatever they're going to do. Well, come to find out that's what they were going to try to do, but fate and concrete intervened. The bell for the first match, by the way, was 25 minutes into the show. And they did the handshake and clean wrestling, and then tempers started to flare mano a mano, and they traded some slaps, and Escobar rolled out and Rey could hit his dive because they got to go to the break in 2 minutes. I don't know that they made 2 minutes or not before the break, but they had obviously more planned on the other side, or more than they got out at least. But when they came back, Rey was in control, but Escobar took over, and they were going back and forth, still clean. There was no heel turn. I don't know how much more they had planned, but to me, it never got into high gear. And it seemed like Escobar was kind of, mono-face. Just maybe is he trying to remember? He's nervous. He doesn't want to fuck up in this situation. My God, whatever the case, but it didn't feel like they really, and also part of Rey's appeal, as we mentioned, in every match, he fights from underneath because the size difference and a big heel that's on him. And he couldn't really get sympathy against a guy that he's having a clean match with and is not trying to fuck with him in any way. So, they were doing all their stuff. And then Rey misses the baseball slide dive, on purpose misses it, where he's going out under the bottom rope at Escobar. And Escobar gets in and hits a big flip dive over the top and fucking boom, hits just a shoulder block. It wasn't like a real dangerous thing. And Rey goes down backwards, and that's their break spot to go to break again. But apparently Rey rattled the back of his head on, it was either the concrete floor or the edge of that entrance ramp. And through the commercial break, he was out of it. And when they came back on the other side, the doctor was already checking him, obviously. And they just had to have the referee call it. He couldn't get his shit together because his bell had been rung. So come to find out, since that happened, that they were originally Escobar was going to win, so they got the right result, but he was going to do what we predicted, and he was going to beat him, and they were going to shake hands and or do another segment afterwards with Rey validating him, which he didn't get a chance to do. So give me your thoughts of the match, but also, does this tell anybody anything that one of the most experienced, safest guys in the world and another guy doing something to him that wasn't particularly dangerous as the curve is graded on these days, and he gets his brain scrambled? It can happen at anything, so why push it, is what I'm saying.
I thought the match was okay, and I agree with you. They clearly want Escobar to be a big star, and I just saw some footage of him, Cody, and Charlotte with a meet and greet before a show, and Escobar was really, really great with a fan who was emotional for meeting him, a young fan. So you could see why WWE likes him, and he's talented in the ring. This went awry. As far as your question about, I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, the one thing to think about is how many guys throughout the years got rattled like that and continued because there was no protocol, because people knew what concussions were but didn't realize the long-term damage of them. You know, how many guys saw stars and kept going? You know, when they showed the replay coming out of commercial, I kept looking for his knee because I didn't even really understand what was happening yet. So I kept thinking, oh, he must have hurt his knee just because it's Rey Mysterio.
When they showed the replay, you can see his head go down, and even though he was obviously going backwards and he was tucking with the momentum or whatever the case, and when he goes down, his head goes whoomp one time backwards, and you hit bounce. And I couldn't tell whether he had slid into the edge of the entrance ramp or it was just the floor, the boom. But when you see that fucking head bounce once, and the thing is, I don't think he could continue. Because it's Rey Mysterio. If he could have, he wouldn't have been there for a while, and the doctor wouldn't have got involved if it was one of the old time deals where, oh, I'll shrug it off. I don't think he could shrug it off for long enough that, you know, in the old days, he would have got counted out. But, you know, that's the thing is, it can happen. You know, Rude took that crossbody from Sting
in Japan
on that.
Yeah.
On that screwy stage they had the ring sitting on because it was in the Tokyo Dome, and that's what fucked his back up for good. And normally that wouldn't even have been there. But, you know, you can never tell when there's some kind of fucking stumbling block laying around.
And maybe that's where Sean got the idea for the casket spot. But, Jim, let me ask you this. When we're talking about all this happening and we're looking at everything that is hot right now in WWE, what does it say to you that Austin Theory's kind of an afterthought? We haven't even talked about him.
Well, yeah, because he's always sitting in the fucking stands watching, you know, whoever's going to, this whole tournament to determine who's going to wrestle him. But in the meantime, he's just sitting up there eating popcorn. And you know, maybe somebody somehow sold this idea on a boy. It'll really build up somebody for Theory, but in the process, they've, you know, just had Theory sitting around watching what's going on. And I imagine he was not going to be interfering in this even originally if it had gone the way it was supposed to go, because it, you know, there was no reason for it. Escobar was winning. So yeah, he's kind of, hey. But really, I mean, you know, we still got the Bloodline.
And LA Knight.
Well, speaking of LA Knight, so Skid Row is in the ring, and they spoke for 20 seconds, and
they're the best. I've become such a big fan of theirs. They're the best.
Well, again, it's like every time they're in the ring, you're watching a comedian die at a comedy club. Because they're acting like the shit they're saying is over and interesting and people are reacting to it and everybody's ignoring them. And it's not good. It's not good banter.
But they don't stop. That's what makes it.
Yeah.
It does nothing to affect their confidence. That's what makes it so appealing. People are they don't give a shit about any of this and they just keep going and they're confident and they're just convinced that they're doing good stuff.
If they were pelting B-Fab with rotten eggs, she would still be strutting around like, look at me. Oh, my God. But they got 20 seconds to talk and interplay with each other. And then here came the LA Knight music and entrance, and he got a huge pop. And he's talking his way to the ring, and he called Flop Dollar Uncle Phil. Oh, God, that's perfect. And somehow he got to where he said that B-Fab was horny for him. I'm not sure exactly how he got there. But the match was LA Knight against Shanty Adonis because they won't let Flop Dollar wrestle anymore, apparently. And again, you know, within, you know, a couple seconds, Adonis starts healing on LA Knight and takes over on him so he can sell a little bit. And Flop Dollar takes a little cheap shot, which the camera cut away from the first time. He can't get a break. And within 60 seconds, LA Knight makes comeback, nails Flop off the apron. It looked like somebody deployed an airbag wearing a hoodie.
Oh,
when he
come
fell
on.
off the apron.
Come on. That's
Did you see? It was great. I'm telling you, he's my hero. And then
your hero.
Yeah.
Really?
And then LA Knight hit the LA Knight elbow and hit his finish 1, 2, 3. And the whole thing didn't take, what, 2.5 minutes. But at least LA Knight's beating people.
He's super over. He's more over every week. We haven't even hit a point where he's less over at all yet. He's more over every single week.
I think he should come out, bend over, and fart into the microphone and let the people give him a standing ovation just to prove he can do it.
That should be how he gives notice.
No, I'm serious.
How do you come back the next week after that?
But don't you think if he just came out and said, let me talk to you, I want to prove a point, and bend over and fart in the microphone, I guarantee you the place would blow.
So he would just fart in the microphone. He wouldn't like talk with his ass like Jim Carrey style or anything.
No, he would fart in the microphone, and the people would blow and give him a standing ovation.
And then
he would point 3 times, L.A. Knight, yeah, and he'd leave.
And then you retire the microphone?
Well, you just get a new windscreen. Because that's what those things are for, right?
Well, it's wind the other way, but
if you break wind with the windscreen breaks the wind. So, in the back, real quick, are they remaking the Hurt Business without the original cast? Bobby Lashley is sitting in somewhere fancy looking with the Street Party. Or the Private Profits. What is their name?
Street Profits.
Street Profits. Private Party was on the other company.
Hey, what happened to Mark Quinn?
I think he's hurt months ago. But anyway, so these guys are talking to Bobby Lashley, and he wheels in a rack of suits for him. And that's the end of the piece. Just he commented on the one guy wearing a sweats, and he brought the suits in. And so they can't seriously think that if they put him with 2 other different black guys just because they're wearing suits, that people won't notice that they're copying what they did with 2 other guys here just not that long ago.
Or maybe
where's MVP?
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's no MVP, no Omos or Omas.
Where did he go? It seems like he'd be hard to hide.
So we don't have them here. Maybe it's where Lashley gets turned down by the Street Profits. They're fooling around with him. They are popular with the WWE fans. I assume they sell merch. So maybe then you get a new Hurt Business going at it with the Street Profits.
Where did you come up with that?
On the street.
Oh, all right. Well, is that the word on the street?
Not really.
Charlotte and Bianca wrestled Cruella and Chelsea. And they did a finish where Charlotte stole the victory from Bianca, which was a good idea because of their issue. But the execution was on Chelsea's part because it was one of those, everybody's got to run around for a minute. And any comments on that?
It was all right. I actually think Chelsea Green's pretty good. I've been getting a kick out of her lately.
She's green to me.
Well, that's her name.
What's her name?
Chelsea Green.
Well, she's very green.
That's what I said.
You know, strange as it seems, they give these wrestlers strange names these days. Now, we've got Greenhorn on first base. All right, anyway. So LA Knight was in the back with Adam Pearce, and he's hot about not being in the U.S. title match at SummerSlam, and so are we. And then the Brawling Brutes confront him, and LA and Sheamus argue. So apparently out of this, both of them are in a single match next week, and they're both in the SummerSlam Battle Royal. Remember we mentioned that a little while ago on the SummerSlam preview. Why did they... Sheamus is a babyface, right?
Sheamus, and yes, he has been, I believe.
So why do they want to book him against a guy they're going to fucking cheer and boo him out of the building?
I don't know.
Anyway, Karrion Kross beat Carl Anderson in a couple minutes. And then we got to the main event, which I forgot to mention happened earlier in the back when Grayson Waller was annoying Jey Uso like he annoys all of us. And Jey Uso hit him with the old anchor punch that Cassius Clay, before he became Muhammad Ali, learned from one of the old-time boxers, I believe it was Jack Johnson, into how he hit Sonny Liston in Lewiston, Maine, when Liston took the dive because he was mobbed up and just wanted to get out of there. Because he hit him with a punch that Grayson Waller sold the shit out of. It didn't come within fucking 6 inches of his face. And that was in the back earlier. So as a result of this, they're going to fight. Jey Uso and Grayson Waller was the main event. They are testing the Bloodline angle here. And can I just mention, Brian, before you tell me what you thought of this, that Grayson Waller looks completely ridiculous. He's got a CPA's haircut, a pale physique that's not really a physique. It looks like he's wearing women's fucking gym shorts and tennis shoes. Did you just see the visual state of him?
Obviously, they're high on him, and they put him in this main event after.
Obviously, they're high.
Well, I don't know. Who knows what's going on up there? But they like him a lot. I don't see it to that level, and like you said, the gear, the look, it doesn't do it for me. The other puzzling thing is, I've seen a few things now. Why are they teasing this guy and The Rock?
Yeah.
He's going to come back and feud with this guy or have a match with this guy?
I'm pretty fucking sure that was just something on Twitter. Rock may have been in a benevolent moment.
There was a camera there. Of course he was.
Well, I can't. Did he give him a truck? I can't imagine that Rock will return to face Grayson Waller. So we'll stay tuned on that one. But they went 2 minutes. And then Roman and Paul and Solo came out and they went to the break. And then they came back and they watched for the rest of the match. And, you know, it looked like Jey Uso wrestling a kid maybe from the boxing team at the local reform school. It was let out on a day pass. I don't know what this fucking guy is. And then basically Uso beat Waller with a spear and a splash. And then Solo jumped in and jumped Jey and went for the spike. And Jey ducked and super kicked him, and Roman came in. And this was a nice little duck do-si-do thing where Jey speared Roman and got a huge pop. And Uso went to the top to go for the splash. Solo pushed him off, hit the rock bottom on him. Roman got up, and they grabbed him and hit a spear spike combination. And then Roman trash talked him some, and then they called an audible and picked him up and gave him another spear and spike combination. And that's why I say if Jey does 10-minute interviews when he's standing in the ring with Solo anymore, I'm wondering about the boy's judgment. But what did you think, young Brian?
Didn't care about the match until like the finish, and the fans really got into Jey Uso winning. And then you get all the Bloodline stuff, and that's really the payoff. That 90 seconds is the payoff for the entire show. And you got a big pop for when he hit the spear on Roman. And then I'm sure we'll see them all talk again next week about all their problems with each other.
But they've almost got, if they could get one or two other things that are as over as the Bloodline deal, then they could fulfill Vince's dream and Kevin Dunn's dream and all of the dreams of all the people that they've hired to work in the office there for the past 40 years and completely get rid of the fucking wrestling.
It'll be right around the time they completely get rid of Kevin Dunn and Vince.
I think they're going to computer generate the wrestling going forward. They're just going to have the fucking boys go out and do the acting, and then their computer generated fucking proteges will actually have the fights.
This is our computer generated AI Kevin Dunn. The code name is The Teeth. And this does all the work.
Anyway, so we don't have ratings for that program because it's the weekend. And so what we're going to do is we're going to goddamn come back on your show this week and figure out whether anybody watched SmackDown or not. We assume it's over 2 million people because that's what they've been doing.
And Roman's there.
So you got that going for you.
All right, well.
What do you got going for you this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Network?
This is one of those moments where there's so much background noise, I can't tell if it's driving me crazy personally in my head or if it's so bad that Jace is going to be like, what the fuck? Why didn't you stop the recording?
Stop talking. Stop talking and just be quiet. I'm listening. I can't hear a goddamn thing over there.
Well, you're old. I mean, what are you going to hear?
Hey!
You're just complaining about your headphones.
Yeah, I've had bad hearing for 20 years. It's not because I'm old. It's because I got hit by lightning and had pyro go off in my fucking head.
Oh, so now you've admitted to the court that you have bad hearing, and it's because you've been hit by lightning and because of pyro.
I got the headphones on so I can listen real close.
All right, well, this week, get news about all the shows on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, the wrestling news. Every day, get your free daily wrestling newscast. No paywall, no clickbait, just the wrestling news. Get it directly from thewrestlingnews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Oh, is that LA Knight? Is that LA Knight?
Yeah, it's LA Knight, baby.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Knight, for the endorsement. Go through the archive today, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite shows. And of course, check out all the Arcadian Vanguard shows. A lot of shows looking at 1983 lately with Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. And of course, check out Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. And a new episode of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast out right now. And don't forget about The Mothership! You see, I took you by surprise. You didn't have a backup one ready.
Well, I've always got one in the chamber, baby.
All right, well.
All right.